Hi everyone, this is Charmaine here, and I'm the registered dietitian that helps people reverse type 2 diabetes, and have Galia here, our program coach. Can you say hi to everyone, Galia?
Hi guys.
Awesome. Well, I'm very excited for today's episode on flexible eating during holidays, and I wanted to record this episode because I know Thanksgiving is coming up for us in the US for next week, and then I know that Christmas is also coming, and that's universal for everyone probably. And so I just really wanted to talk about how can we practice flexible eating during the holidays while still being on track. And I know this is where a lot of people trip up because they feel like, all right, I got to start after the holidays because that's when I can be perfect, right? And I think that is actually the trap when it comes to dieting, is feeling like you have to be perfect. And so I really wanted to talk about this topic and just to show you that when you do start reversing your diabetes, or even when you start working with us, I always tell my clients this: the best time to get started is actually before the holidays, and work with us during the holidays. Same with when you're traveling. If you are someone that travels a lot, if you're someone that experience holidays every year, which I'm pretty sure that's most of us, then, I think the best time to start is now, so that we can work with you to build your own flexible eating system, where we can still coach you on how to kind of not bounce back, but, how to get back on track to make sure that you keep your insulin sensitivity high, if that makes sense. So I don't know, Galia, if you have any tips for anyone to start eating flexibly during the holidays, what should our attitude be when we first get started, if you want to share something about it?
Yeah, for sure. So I think, kind of just to echo on what you said there, I think the difficulty for most of us, for most people, is that we feel like we have to do things like all or nothing, right? Either we're all in, we're changing our lifestyle, we're starting a new pattern of eating, a new diet, or we're not going to do that just yet. Right? And just like I'm sure you've heard Cara say this a million times. So Cara is one of the coaches in our program. There is you can get benefit from any like level of incorporating more plant-based foods, right? By just having like one more plant-based food on your plate, you are going to benefit. You don't have to be 100% of the time. I think it's something like we put that pressure on ourselves. We create that pressure and that expectation that if we are going to go about making change, we have to, be gung-ho and be 100%. I was speaking with a lady today who decided to join the program, and we were going back and forth trying to figure out when the best time to start was. And she kept saying, should I start after Thanksgiving, or, like, what do you think? I said, I'm like, well, doesn't Thanksgiving happen every year? Like, doesn't Christmas happen every year? Isn't it better to figure out how we can navigate these occasions, these events that are always going to happen and are a normal part of life that we should be able to enjoy, right? So learning how to go through these moments with like kindness towards ourselves and figuring out what works for us is really going to ensure that any changes that you make in your lifestyle are going to work for you long term, because we're taking into account normal life, going out to restaurants, Thanksgiving, birthdays, Christmas, New Year's, like whatever it is. These are normal parts of life that we should feel like we can enjoy without feelings of guilt, shame, or anxiety. And there's no reason to feel any of those emotions, because like we said, if you just have like one plant food on your plate, you're getting benefit there, right? You don't have to be 100%, 100% of the time, right? I think my biggest tip for anybody who's looking to enjoy, their holiday and still, be, somewhat health conscious, is just plan ahead, right? Like if you are going to families or a family member's house or a friend's house, bring a dish that gives you that peace of mind, whether that be green beans or Brussels sprouts or roasted carrots or, whatever you like. Bring something that that you can rely on, that's going to give you that peace of mind where you can feel, for sure there's something on your plate that you feel really, really good about, right? And if you have, like for me, for example, during Christmas, I will have some animal protein. For me, Christmas in specific, because I'm in the UK, guys, I don't celebrate Thanksgiving. I'm missing out.
I know. All the good food is in Thanksgiving for us.
I'll pretend like I'm there with you. I'll look at your photos, Charmaine.
Yes.
But for example, for Christmas, I will have some animal protein, right? But the way that I have peace of mind and the way that I ensure it's not going to throw off how I feel the next day, throw off my blood sugar readings, is to ensure that I have a good chunk of like veggies on my plate, right? So if I'm going to have some turkey or whatever we're having this year, we haven't planned yet, having green beans, like I said, having carrots, having Brussels sprouts. And then that is like the star of the show for me. And then I can enjoy whatever else I feel like enjoying on that day and have that peace of mind, right? I think when you focus on like the micronutrients on your plate, and you ensure that you have some good stuff on there, it takes that pressure off of feeling like you have to get it perfect in every area, in every department. I think as well, like when it comes to the holidays, like it's almost this like risk reward balance, right? So I don't want to miss out on these occasions. So I'm not going to allow for it to create stress for me, because the amount of joy that I get in these holidays, as I'm sure is the case for most people, right? We look forward to these things. Right. We look forward to seeing our family members and the conversation. And I think reminding ourselves as well that these holidays are much more multifaceted than just the food, right? It's also the interaction, the laughter, so many other things that we get. And the full focus shouldn't just be on the food, right? Like we can have that balance of enjoying ourselves, having parts of our meals that we know are going to kind of help us balance out. And we can also focus on all the other happy parts of the holidays that give us that sense of fulfillment outside of just what we're eating, and like I said, I think it's just focusing on trying to have some whole foods in your plate. Whatever else you want to enjoy on that day, enjoy yourself, find the balance that works for you, but have that peace of mind somewhere or on your plate, and make sure that you're not just focusing on the food, because it will give you anxiety, it will stress you out, right? And there's nothing to stress out, because if we allow ourselves to stress out, we're holding ourselves back from having a good time ultimately, right? We're taking the joy, the laughter, the family time away from ourselves by just focusing on what am I going to eat.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I really love what you shared and all the tips. And I think one of the things that I got out of it is to plan ahead and be intentional about it. I think a lot of times people just feel like, okay, I'm still going to be perfect, like during Thanksgiving, and I'm not going to think about it. Or some people just get really anxious and don't want to think about it. They're like, okay, whatever happens, right? But I think it's actually helpful when you're intentional about it, because one, it gives you the confidence of, okay, you're going to be okay because you have a plan, right? And I think second, just knowing what you can fall back on, right? Like, for example, the, Brussels sprouts and the carrots, at least carrots. I love having that like during Thanksgiving, or even Brussels sprouts too. But just being able to have that in mind, okay, like these are the star of the show, and you can also enjoy other things meanwhile. I think just having the plan really helps. Something that I also think about, what you can do prior, the week prior to Thanksgiving, for example, is maybe building more muscle mass so that, it creates that quota. And I know that's something that you always mention, is creating that quota for, when you are flexible, right? And for your insulin sensitivity to be higher than before, so that you can make room for flexibility, right? And so, of course, you're the certified personal trainer here. You're more qualified to speak on this, but I feel like that's something that will also be helpful for people to kind of be prepared to have that flexible meal, to enjoy your family, to not have to worry about these things, having the tools to be able to know that, okay, like my blood sugar is going to be fine, when I implement these strategies. Does that make sense?
100%. And like, I love what you said there about, just being more mindful of how activity can be useful in preparation for the flexibility that we want to enjoy, right? Like my family, we always make it a point on Christmas, which it might be hard to do initially, right? But we make it a point on Christmas Day, or Christmas Eve. We celebrate Christmas Eve because we're South American. So
Same.
that we're not just going to stay in all day and just be seated and eat. We'll be making a point let's go on a family walk, before or after we've eaten, because that's going to help our bodies. That I know for me, when I go for a walk after I've eaten a meal, even particularly if it's like a heavier meal than I normally eat, right, that walk is going to serve me really, really well. It's going to help my body digest food better because I'm not just sitting, right? I'm standing, I'm moving my body, my muscles are going through micro contractions with each step, which helps the food move down my digestive tract, so I don't feel bloated in the same way. It's going to help my blood sugars. I'm going to feel good as well, in my mind, because I know that I've done something that's going to benefit me. And if you go with your family on a short, it could be a 15-minute walk around your neighborhood, right? Very easy to do. And it's also more quality time, which is what these holidays are all about to begin with. So I think that's something really simple that you can do on these occasions, not just in preparation for, that can have you feeling really good. And then to add on to what you said, Charmaine, about being intentional, I know for me, right, in the past, when I wasn't as, thoughtful about kind of my personal health, and I know it's definitely been a journey for me over the years, but I know on Christmas I would just go all out, because I was overwhelmed by all the foods around me, that I wasn't intentional about what I really wanted to eat, what was actually special and important to me. I would just see food and I would just want to eat it all. And I think it's very easy to do that because the food that we have on these occasions looks beautiful. We know it tastes beautiful, right? And so sometimes we end up almost overloading our plates with stuff that maybe we're actually not that keen on eating, or it's not really going to give us that much fulfillment. So I think if you know what is going to be, for example, if you are hosting and you know what's going to be prepared, or if you're at a family's house or a friend's house and you know what's going to be on the menu, in air quotes per se, you can have a think about, okay, what are the things that I actually really want to be able to eat and enjoy, right? And what are the things that I'm not too interested in, because there's probably going to be some stuff that you actually are not that interested in eating, right? And there's going to be some things that you would really value to eat. So be intentional about the things that mean something to you, are special to you. Enjoy those, and then balance them out with other elements in your plate that are going to help you feel good as well. And that way you get maximum enjoyment because you're not restricting yourself, you're not depriving yourself of the things that you want to eat, and you also get the peace of mind to know I've enjoyed myself and I feel good about it because I know I've also eaten a ton of fiber in this meal, and maybe I've also been very intentional about drinking a lot of water while I'm having this meal, so I feel good about how I've gone about this meal. There's no guilt, there's no shame, there's just pure enjoyment, fulfillment, and peace of mind.
Yeah, I love what you shared. And it is interesting because I feel like a lot of times during holidays, we eat because there's a lot of food, right? And we almost have this scarcity mindset of okay, if it's not this meal, I'm never going to have it again, right? Or we think, okay, after Thanksgiving, I'm going to start this diet, right? Or after Christmas, I'm going to start this diet. And so the reason that you eat becomes scarcity because you're not going to have it the next day, right? And so I think it's helpful to, one, to eat because you enjoy it, and to eat because you're also hungry, to eat the food. And I think something that is a good strategy is, if it's Thanksgiving dinner, if it's Christmas dinner, right? Like, have a plate and try to put every piece of the food on plate, something that you think you'll want to try, something that you think you'll enjoy. Of course, like, load up with veggies first, and then, either the second plate or the other half of the plate, like, fill it with something that you want to try, right? And so when you do try it, if you're like, I don't really enjoy this as much, then, leave it. You don't have to finish it, and this might be controversial, but you don't have to worry about the food that's wasted, because it's either going to be in your body for extra calories, or it's going to be in the trash, and maybe you can compost it. Maybe it'll be better for, the environment. I don't know. So I think it's something that, people can try practicing. Okay, like, if you really don't enjoy it, you don't have to finish it, right? Like, you can just take a few bites and, leave it if you don't like it. If it doesn't make you feel good, you don't have to scarf it down just because it's that holiday, right? And so I think that's something that is also helpful to really have the end goal in mind. Okay, how can I make this meal as enjoyable as I can? Kind of like what you mentioned, right? Like, how can I feel good at the end of this meal, right? And I think that's something that I always tell people is, when you think about flexible eating, just think about how you'll feel after the meal, right? Like, you can still be flexible and still feel good, or you can be flexible and feel bad at the end of the meal and not have energy at all, or want to, like, sleep all day and miss out on family time, right? Like, I think it's a balance that you have to think about, but also think about, okay, like, how will I feel the best at the end of the meal, if that makes sense.
100%. And I think like what you said, nobody likes the feeling of like a food coma after a meal, right? And for most people, the reason that the holidays are special is because we're around friends and family, right? So it's not conducive to capitalizing on that purpose if we are in a food coma after the meal, right? We're not going to be as talkative. We're not going to be fully present. Like, it's just not, it's going to take away from the other experiences that these moments are about. I think something else that, like, I think of in terms of the holidays is my family, like, we love we're gonna sound like crazy people. We love a good cocktail on holidays.
That
okay,
doesn't sound crazy.
and I think for me as well, it's not just about being intentional with food, it's also about being intentional with drink. Because if you have insulin resistance, if you are diabetic, alcohol, not alcohol alone in terms of just clear spirits, but like the drinks that we usually have on holidays, so kind of heavier, richer drinks, more sugary drinks, they are also going to affect our blood sugars, right? And I think being very intentional and thoughtful about, again, the same question, like, what are the things that I really enjoy and I really value, and let me enjoy the things that I value, but also find balance with those things. So I will definitely have like a glass of wine and a cocktail during Christmas, but I know that if I have more than 2 drinks, it's going to negatively affect my blood sugar, and that will affect me the next day as well in terms of alcohol, right? That will throw off my numbers for the next day, which means it's not just me thinking about how is this going to affect me now, it's how is this going to affect me over the next 24 hours or even longer at times. And I think that's something to factor in as well, not just the food, but the beverages that we have, like even things like hot chocolate and stuff like that, right? Not just alcoholic beverages and cocktails and wine or whatever, but things like hot chocolate, or in the US, I think you guys have like eggnog, or I'm not eggnog. I believe there's quite a bit of like sugar and stuff in there as well. And
cream,
I think just being mindful. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just being mindful about these things. Like it might be something that you really enjoy. And if it's something that you really enjoy, enjoy it, right? But know where you need to kind of set that limit for yourself to have that balance, so it doesn't throw you off, and so you can also have that peace of mind of I really enjoyed myself and I feel really good about the way that I've gone about this. So I think the most important thing is actually the planning ahead, and putting in the time to sit with yourself and ask yourself those questions of like, what are the things that I actually really look forward to in terms of food and beverage? What are the things that I would like to enjoy on this occasion? How can I balance those things out with other things in my plate, in terms of what I'm drinking, so that I can feel really good? So if you're going to have, you know, a sweeter beverage or like a alcoholic beverage that has sugars in it, make sure for any drink that you have, you're also having a glass of water, right? To help your body, right? In terms of the food, like we said, have stuff that you want to try, something that you really look forward to, and load up on veggies. You will feel so good, and like you can enjoy everything that you want to and not feel bad about it. Like there's literally nothing to feel bad about. I think as well, in the grand scheme of things, reminding ourselves that if we are consistent in our lifestyles, like it's okay to have these moments of flexibility, right? Like if you're showing up for yourself in the best way that you can, the majority of the time, like there's literally nothing to worry about. This is the struggle for most people, is finding balance. This is the reason that people struggle when it comes to diet, patterns of eating, lifestyle, is that we've never learned how to actually have balance. We always feel like we have to operate in such extremes. Taking the time to figure out like, how can I have that balance, means you're going to be happier, to be honest. You're not going to feel like you have to miss out on anything, and that balance is going to serve you long term, because whatever you're doing in your lifestyle will be sustainable, because you never feel like you're missing out on stuff that you want to enjoy.
Yeah. I love what you shared. And, you know, I think something that we can also think about is how to have alternatives to your regular, you know, meals. For example, like mac and cheese, right? Or this, you know, decadent, immigrant brain. Sometimes I'm like, what is that word? Decadent dessert, like pumpkin pie, for example, because I know that, you know, there's kind of two types of people when it comes to holidays. Some people really want to enjoy the food, right? And still have your turkey, still have your, you know, Thanksgiving pumpkin pie, like the real deal, right? But some people also want to, you know, kind of be in the middle, or still be a little bit, you know, healthier when it comes to Thanksgiving and holidays. And so I think something that you can also, you know, have an idea is that there's always a way to make the same dish in the healthier way, right? And so, for example, for this Thanksgiving, I'm planning to make a mac and cheese that's made with cashew cheese, right? Like cashews aren't something that I always recommend people to have like a lot of, because it's so higher in fat, but it's still healthy, right? And it's not something that I, you know, make every day, because it is a lot. It's kind of time consuming to make the whole like cashew sauce, and I have to like bake the mac and cheese. That's like a thing with like Thanksgiving meals in the US, like you have like baked mac and cheese. Oh, it's so good. But I'm gonna make that like for, you know, Thanksgiving, or I'm going to make a healthier version of pumpkin pie that, you know, still tastes good. So I think something that you can also get excited about is creating your own version of, you know, that meal that you really enjoy, right? Or maybe I'm going to get a vegan roast or instead of turkey, right? Maybe I'm going to get, you know, and this is just by personal choice, right? Like of getting a vegan roast, and maybe the vegan roast isn't completely like low in fat, but it's still something that I'm going to enjoy with gravy and things like that. So that's something that I'm, you know, planning to do. And so I think this is something that also will be a great opportunity for your family to also try. It's like, oh, try what, you know, vegan roast tastes like, or try what, you know, vegan mac and cheese tastes like, right? On a healthier version. So I think that's something that, you know, people can also know that, okay, you don't if you don't want to be, you know, eating animal protein, or if you don't want to kind of, you know, not follow the wagon, I don't like using that word, but if you don't want to be, off plan, then there's also other alternatives that you can use as well, just for those audience that still want to eat healthy on Thanksgiving and still want to feel their absolute best. But I think all in all, what we're trying to say is that there's different tools for you to kind of balance things out, to be intentional as well. I love what you said about drinks, because I honestly didn't even think about that. I think it's a real thing, right? Like you also want to be able to plan out, how you drink alcohol as well. For some people, alcohol might lower their blood sugar too much because it actually increases your insulin production, right? And so I think like making plans for that will also be helpful as well. I don't know if you have anything, Galia, that you want to add to wrap up the podcast.
I would just, on one last note, is just to be kind to yourself throughout the process as well, because anytime like we go through the holiday seasons, like if you are making changes to your lifestyle, like you're in a learning process. You might not get things perfect, right? You might feel like in retrospect, like looking back, you might think, oh, I could have done this, or I should have done that. That's going to just take away from you, right? So I think remembering to just be kind to yourself and remember that it is a learning process. And even if we do have those moments where we can look back at the holiday season and think, oh, I could have, implement that for next year, and then you're golden, right?
Yeah.
Because every little moment that we, if we feel like we fall, right, that is a learning opportunity, and it's beneficial, and it's a great moment as long as we can learn something from it. So even if you don't get things perfectly, right, just think about, okay, if I want to continue on this trajectory, like what can I learn from these experiences? And as long as you have a takeaway, like you've done good, right?
Yeah. I love that. I love what you just shared about, making this a learning opportunity. And I always say this: guilt and shame doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help you. It doesn't help us. It doesn't help, anyone around you. But if you have this positive mindset of, okay, like I learned something, right? I learned something about myself. I learned something about the holidays, and I'm going to implement that next year. So instead of saying, I shouldn't have done this, you should say, I should do it next year, or I should do it, in Christmas, if you learned this from Thanksgiving, right? Or I should do this at New Year's Eve if you learned something in Christmas, or, I don't know, the next holidays, Valentine's Day, and so on and so forth, right? Just learning from, this situation and not putting any shame to it. Be kind to yourself, and also just really have that internal conversation and saying that you tried your best, and that's what we need. And so I think that's something that is very important to understand, is to kind of like switch that mindset and just be understanding and just know that, okay, like I'm excited to do this in my next holiday. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that, right? Even listening to this, right? Like I'm sure you already have a few things that you've written down, what you're going to do for Thanksgiving or for Christmas. And so be excited about that, because I think it's a great opportunity to change things up, like try new foods and enjoy your time with family. So thank you so much, Galia, for joining me on this conversation about holidays. We also have so much fun talking about, being able to be flexible and being able to, enjoy different dishes on holidays. So thank you so much, Galia, for joining me.
Of course.
And yeah. And for those of you who, are thinking of working with us even during the holidays, just hop on a call with us in our description. It'll be in my link tree, or, my Stand Store link, and you'll be able to apply to work with us, because I really do think this is the golden time to work with us. Other than, I really do think this is even better than New Year resolution time to start, because you have the opportunity to work with us in order to help you create the best quota for increasing your insulin sensitivity, to be able to have that mindset of being kind to yourself during the holidays and not beat yourself up because you ate turkey or anything like that. This is something that we'll be able to walk with you through and be able to, teach you how to do this every single year. So if you also are interested in learning about the science behind reversing insulin resistance, then make sure you watch our free training. Link is in the description or show notes. And I can't wait to help you guys be able to master the holidays, master Thanksgiving, master Christmas. It's going to be very exciting. So hopefully everyone have a good time during the holidays, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Have a good one, everyone.